remember when I came up with the title for this blog post that I'm going to tell you about, I thought I was being maybe too dramatic. I'm not a dramatic person, so I thought it was like too sensationalistic. I don't know. I ran it by a few of my friends and they agreed with me. This allergy really is every vegan's nightmare. I'm Christina. I am a registered nurse and health coach, and I wanted to share a little bit about my experience with systemic contact dermatitis. So let's get into my story. I will begin with my hand eczema. Well, let me tell you a little bit about my childhood first. Okay. For 7 years of my childhood, my mother had my family on a macrobiotic diet. So this diet is mostly vegan and seasonal. And it was homemade food. I remember for breakfast, my mom would make homemade miso soup. And it wasn't like the nice, delicious, salty kind at Japanese restaurants. This was like thick and a lot of pulp. And she would put barley in it, and that was our breakfast. We were extremely healthy household for the majority of my childhood, but then in my teen years and when I went to high school, we weren't so strict, but I always kind of came back to eating healthy because it did make me feel better. A few months after my daughter was born, 2014, I developed a rash on my ring finger where I wore my wedding rings. And I remember thinking that was weird, and I removed the rings. I tried cleaning them and all of that. I switched them to the other side of my hand for one day, and I developed a rash on the other hand, and then I decided to not wear them at all. I went to a dermatologist. He told me I had contact dermatitis, and he gave me steroid cream. He didn't tell me to stay away from my rings or that I could be allergic to metal. He didn't say anything like that. He just gave me prescription topical steroids and sent me on my way. That was it for about a few years. I always had the rash on my hand, but it wasn't so annoying that I did anything about it. And 3 years went by, and I changed my diet a little bit. My sister and I started working out, and we wanted to take a protein shake. And we both found this chocolate vegan chia seed protein shake. And I think it was not even a week later, I developed crazy eye eczema. I went to an allergist, and he said that he didn't know what was causing my eye eczema, but my hand eczema was probably due to a nickel allergy. He explained that that is the most common contact allergen, and a lot of rings can have alloys in the metals, and they can contain nickel and other metals, and that is probably what is causing my contact dermatitis. I explained that I haven't worn any jewelry, but he didn't really have an explanation for that, and he said, why don't you try an elimination diet? Your eye eczema could be related to something that you're eating. He said if it doesn't work, he will prescribe oral steroids. He did prick testing that didn't reveal much, and that was it. At this point, I'm new to allergies. I don't know, even though I'm a registered nurse, I don't know much about allergies. I had a lot of faith in my doctors to help me figure this out. So I went home and I started an elimination diet like my allergist recommended. I went all in. I avoided all the top allergens. It was like shellfish and nuts and dairy, wheat, eggs, and peanuts. And I really focused on cleaning up my diet and eating whole foods. So I ate a lot of green leafy vegetables and lentil soups and bone broth to try to heal my gut. And I was juicing kale. I was making kale salads, eating oatmeal every morning for breakfast instead of eggs. And I got significantly worse. I mean, my rashes were really out of control. In the beginning, I didn't know if food was causing my rashes, but it really became crystal clear that food was the culprit because my diet was the only thing I changed, and I got significantly worse. My eye eczema was worse. The rashes on my hands were growing. It spread from, just having rashes on 2 fingers to like 3 fingers, and it started spreading on top of my palms. I had a patch on my ankle. They were splitting and oozing and weeping. And it was really bad. And in addition to my hands being a disaster, I also started experiencing palpitations. Like I would get racing heartbeat soon after I would eat certain foods. I was developing hives around my mouth, and sometimes my stomach would break out in hives in my chest. I had dark circles under my eyes. I was just tired and just achy and super cranky and moody. I wasn't sleeping well. And I was really scared. I didn't know what was going on. I was having panic attacks. I'm not sure how much of that was physiological or psychological, but I know that my heart would race after I would eat, and I would get hives, and then I would feel panic. And I was seeing my primary care physician a lot at this point. He was drawing all sorts of labs. He was trying to identify any triggers. He was referring me to specialists. We were digging deep, and I was doing a lot of my own research. My family was getting involved researching with me. So yeah, that was a rough time. Luckily, it only lasted probably 5 or 6 months. I got the eye rash in February, and then I was really sick in May, June, and then finally in July I found the low nickel diet. I found first, a few weeks before, a low histamine diet, and I realized that yes, foods high in histamine were making me feel worse. So I started limiting the foods that I was eating that were rich in histamine, but it was still super reactive. Then I started a low nickel diet. When I first looked at the low nickel diet, I was like, you gotta be kidding me. Basically, the safe foods are meats and dairy and white flour and white rice. There's other things that are safe too, but a lot of the lists, that's what they kind of highlight. And so I was thinking, oh my gosh, this is so unhealthy. I was thinking that I had to eat all of these, whole grains and dark leafy greens and, nuts and seeds and beans and all of this, vegan sources of protein. But this diet said that no, the nuts, seeds, beans, whole grains, dark leafy greens are all off limits. And then not only that, you have to figure out what you can cook with and what you can and cannot touch. And when you go out to eat, how are they preparing your food? Anyway, so it was a huge learning curve. Dug into the research, and I found an amazing Facebook group that has a wealth of information, low nickel diet and lifestyle, eating well on a low nickel diet, I think /SNAS, which stands for systemic nickel allergy syndrome. So I joined the group, and I was amazed. I was amazed that, first of all, there was a name for this condition, and I learned how to be properly diagnosed. And within 4 months, my rashes were completely gone. It was amazing. But yeah, I, for a long time, was really embarrassed to talk about this allergy. There's a lot of people that hear about it and think you're crazy, and they don't believe that it is a real thing. Even some doctors still don't consider this a real condition, even though there has been multiple double-blind placebo-controlled studies proving that this does exist. But not everybody who's allergic to nickel will have the systemic version of this allergy. Only about 10 to 20% of us will become sensitive to dietary forms of nickel, and in my case, cobalt. Oh, I have to tell you about that. After a year of clearing my rashes completely without the use of steroids, I went to my dermatologist. She performed patch testing. It came back that I was allergic to only cobalt. I was so confused. And it didn't take me long to figure it out. Nickel and cobalt are sister metals. They're found together in the environment. And a lot of the foods that are high in nickel are also high in cobalt. They have about the same top offending foods, but with cobalt, you also have to watch out for foods that are high in or concentrated in B12. So that's liver, any supplements that contain B12 be very harmful to us. Obviously, we need B12 to survive. Our body depends on it. But these concentrated sources are too much for people who have a systemic cobalt allergy. So I get my B12 through eating red meat, eggs, salmon. They are all good sources of B12. So yeah, hence the vegan nightmare. When you're a vegan, you need to be able to eat plant-based proteins and take a B12 supplement. And that is why this is pretty much a nightmare for vegans. So I created Christina David Wellness to help people with this allergy and raise awareness. I think there needs to be a lot more attention on systemic contact dermatitis and these systemic metal allergies. I am really concerned for people who go in and have surgeries and are getting metal placed in their body. It can cause a lot of issues and mysterious symptoms, chronic fatigue syndrome, arthralgias, lots of pain. And I think that there are probably a lot of people out there that have this allergy unknowingly. And so I want to do my best to raise awareness, and I offer health coaching for people. I also developing some resources for people. They're not out yet, so stay tuned for that. So if you like this and it was helpful, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I will be putting out more videos. I'm trying to aim for at least one video a week. But if you want to see more tips, you can check out my blog on my website. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Pinterest. I have a ton of resources on my website, and I blog about this all the time, so follow me at Christina David Wellness. You remember when I had rashes all over my eyes and my hands?
Yeah.
Yeah? And she would make me nickel maps at school. It was the cutest thing. She would draw a map, and it was like this, a treasure map to try to find where the nickel was. Her whole preschool knew about my allergy.
Because I told them.
Yeah.
She used to not like to tell people, but now she's making videos of it.